More on that developing story in the government's insider trading crackdown. 4 Wall Streeters have been charged. In the hedge fund industry specifically, we're looking at Samir Barai, founder of Barai Capital. For more on the other names, the other charges, because obstruction of justice also among those charges against those 4 accused. Former U.S. prosecutor Fred Tecce is with us. He's now with McShea Tecce. Fred, thanks for giving us your early read here. From what you understand, with these 2 people turning themselves over to the FBI and the charges against them, what kind of case are we looking at here?
Well, I'll tell you, Margaret, good morning, and thanks for having me. I see a lot of stuff going on here. First of all, the fact is that 2 of them have already pled guilty tells me that they're cooperating with the authorities. And whenever you have cooperators, what the authorities want them to do is point upwards. So they're going after people who would be higher than these guys are in the food chain. That's the first thing that's going on. The fact that 2 of them got charged with obstruction of justice doesn't surprise me. I mean, having done a lot of white-collar cases when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, sometimes these guys can get a little bit arrogant and they can be a little bit difficult. And ultimately, what that tells me is they tried to scrub their computers or they tried to destroy their cell phones. Who knows what happened? But charging with obstruction of justice is a serious charge. And when you're a prosecutor, you do that to send a message to people that when you're in trouble, pal, you better not be hiding computers and trying to destroy documents and shred evidence, because ultimately we're going to catch you and the charges are going to be worse.
Yeah, and it looks like 2 of them have already brokered a plea deal here, including Jason Flom among those. 2 of the names we know, Noah Freeman and Donald, I'm not sure the last name here, Longwile is how I'd say it, Donald Longwile, appear to be former employees of SAC Capital. That's a firm whose name keeps popping up as we talk about the broad SEC probe into the hedge fund industry. When you say, the SEC is going after the little guys to work their way up, the fact that we keep hearing that one firm's name resurface, what does that tell you here? Is that who the real target of this investigation is, SAC?
It may very well be, and ultimately what you've got to do is, in order to charge the firm itself, is you have to show that the decision makers, the officers or the directors, were actively involved in the criminal wrongdoing, and those cases are more difficult, because ultimately what happens is that the officers and directors come and say, I had no idea this was going on. If I knew these guys were doing this, I'd have fired them in a New York minute, all right? And so you've got to be able to really kind of nail that down. And one thing, when you're a prosecutor, you have the testimony of the guys who have pled guilty, and the defense lawyers for the officers and directors are going to be standing up there saying, my guy's never been charged with a crime. You're now listening to the testimony of 2 guys who have pled guilty and are trying to save their skin. And, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that's reasonable doubt. So the testimony of what we used to call dirty witnesses isn't enough on its own. You've got to be able to corroborate that, and that's what the U.S. Attorney's Office is doing now. They're putting their case together piece by piece, kind of brick by brick.